My name is John H., and I'm an alcoholic. I'm also a drug addict and a compulsive gambler. In this Code Blue Big Book Study in Action seminar, we're going to go through the recovery section of the Big Book line by line, and we're going to do the action that our book tells us we must do to recover from the seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. This is based on the Canadian method used by the Golden Slippers, but I also borrow a lot of information from the Joe and Charlie Big Book Weekend tapes, as I feel their interpretation carries so much depth and weight. Sometimes I use their material verbatim, so don't get angry at me. Sometimes they can say things a lot better than me. This action and study is designed so that you can follow along in a 4th edition Big Book. Have your pen and highlighter ready. I don't claim to be any kind of big book guru or top 10 spiritualist. I'm just a simple drunk who was almost dead from the disease when a group of my heroes, some recovered alcoholics, took me through the book 5 years ago and saved my life. There's also some paperwork that you can download. Hopefully I'll get that online as well. Some from Joe and Charlie and some from the Golden Slippers. Please forgive any mistakes, errors, or misquotes you may detect. I'm sure there are many, for once again, I'm just a simple drunk trying to help other folks as I was helped myself. Thanks for listening. Good evening, everybody. I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. During the 1950s, a man by the name of Max C., now deceased, started a group in Winnipeg, Manitoba called the Golden Slippers. The group is a back to the basics of the Big Book kind of group, especially for those people who could not stay sober for any length of time. The group took a bunch of chronic slippers and walked them through the steps, taking the action exactly as laid out by the first 100 men and women who wrote the basic textbook Alcoholics Anonymous. This is not your typical thanks for sharing kind of AA meeting, nor is it like any seminar. Participants are asked to do all 12 steps as laid out in our basic textbook. One or more of the people who have done this work before will be guides to lead you through the instructions in our basic textbook using a dictionary published at about the same time as the book Alcoholics Anonymous to help us better understand the directions as they were written by the first 100 men and women. We ask every participant to commit to the entire process. Though we read and study the AA Big Book, this group is not limited to members of AA. We who have participated in these groups before have come to understand that these sessions make us much better sponsors. Hey, and I lost page 2, but I might have another copy here somewhere. We can now lead people through the steps exactly as they were given to us by those who have gone before us. This is a back to the basic kind of meeting. There we are. Let's see how good my memory is. Now lead people through the steps exactly as given to us by those who have gone before unfettered and unchanged. In addition to being a boot camp for sponsors, we also feel this is especially valuable to those who have been through some sort of treatment or rehab and have been, in effect, left off at step 3 or step 5. Recovery requires that we do all 12 steps. We recover in AA by taking the steps, and if we don't take the action as described in our basic textbook, we might not recover. These study and action sessions will guide you through the steps precisely as the first 100 men and women laid them down. These are back to the basic sessions, accepting the simple kit of spiritual tools that's been laid at our feet. Now again, if there's a few people that weren't here on the first one, what we do is we start out with the set-aside prayer right here. And if you're able to get down on a knee or you're inclined to, you can, but you sure don't have to. God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about sobriety, life, and you, so that I may be open to a new experience. Amen. All right, guys. So last week we talked a little bit about the history of the book, right? The history of the Big Book. And, we got to remember that we are probably the luckiest alcoholics that ever lived, because prior to the 1930s, not only did nobody know what alcoholism was, but they didn't have an answer for it, right? What everybody thought alcoholism was, they thought it was weak willpower. They thought that it was sinful. They thought that we had low moral character, right? They thought that that's what was wrong with us, right? Alcoholism has been around for thousands of years, and one of the first statements made about alcoholism is a Chinese proverb, and this is about 4,000 years old, And the Chinese proverb goes like this: a man takes a drink, the drink takes a drink, the drink takes the man. Now that's from 4,000 years ago, right? Now we also have something out of the Bible. This is out of Proverbs in the Bible, and this was written by Solomon. Now, I would imagine that somebody at one point, and I think this is maybe 3,500 years ago, but I'm not certain. I think somebody might have asked Solomon, what do you think alcoholism is, right? So this is right out of the Proverbs. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eye? They that tarry long at the wine. You will be as one who stoopeth in the midst of the sea, or that sleepeth at the top of the tall mast. Remember when you're twirling around, right? You will say, they have beaten me, and I felt it not. I used to wake up in the morning, and I'd have bruises, black eyes, much like this one that I didn't remember. And thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. They will arise the morning and seek it yet again. That's almost a perfect description of an alcoholic, about what happens to us, and then we wake up in the morning and we seek it yet again, right? So there was a guy named Dr. Trotter in England about 300 years ago, and he wrote a paper on alcoholism, but he didn't know what it was and he didn't have an answer for it. There was a guy named Dr. Benjamin Rush. He's a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and he said that he thought alcoholism was a disease, but he couldn't describe it, and he didn't have an answer for it, right? So it wasn't until our friend Dr. Silkworth, who worked at the Towns Hospital, we talked about him last week, who treated over 50,000 alcoholics, that we got an idea about this disease concept of alcoholism. So basically what happened, and we talked a little bit about that last week. Now, Bill Wilson, Bob Smith, Dr. Bob Smith, and Bill Dotson, the first three guys that got sober, and the first 40 people, they sobered up and they decided to write the book Alcoholics Anonymous. They asked Dr. Silkworth if they could use some of his ideas about the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind in the book. And then they said, would you be willing to write some of it? And Dr. Silkworth said, yes, you can use it. Yes, I'll write it. But don't use my name. Right? He said, you can only call it the doctor's opinion. He said, I cannot prove any of this, and if I put my name into it, they're going to drum me out of the medical profession and I won't be able to make a living. Right? So by the second edition, in 55-56, the American Psychiatric Association declared that alcoholism was an illness, that it was a disease, and at that point, either Silky, Dr. Silkworth, or his descendants said, you can go ahead and use my name now. So in the second, third, and fourth editions, we have Dr. Silkworth's name, but in the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we do not have his name. Now, this is a reproduction, right? Bill Wilson was a salesman, right? He was a stock speculator, and I can see him all over this. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. I can just see somebody running down the streets of New York trying to hide this book so people didn't see it. He figured that if it was bright colors, it would sell better. But when we open up to the doctor's opinion, very truly yours, right? And there's nobody there, right? So that's why they call it the doctor's opinion. So we are going to go to XXV. Now, the doctor's opinion for my recovery was a vital concept to grasp, right? And we don't know why. In the first edition, the doctor's opinion used to be on page 1, but for some reason they moved it to the preface. And we know that alcoholics don't read the Roman numerals, right? But this is critical information. We talked last week about how Dr. Bob Smith had been, he knew the solution and he knew the practical program of action, but he had not been able to recover from alcoholism because he did not know what it was, right? So we're going to read a little bit about the doctor's opinion and try to explain what he's talking about. So let's go to XXV. That first word there, we, let's go ahead and circle that and highlight that. That's a very important word, we. We can do what I can't do. I don't know about you guys, but the last 10, 15 years of my using it, it was me and me alone, and I tried any numerous things to stop drinking, and nothing worked, right? But when I finally came into these rooms and I started to accept this program of action, that we helped me to recover. So we can do what I can't do. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery. Right above plan of recovery, write 12 steps. That is the plan of recovery. It's not going to 90 meetings in 90 days. Now, going to 90 meetings in 90 days is going to support us. That's going to support us and hopefully keep us sober long enough that we can work the 12 steps and have a vital spiritual experience, because that's what the book tells us we need to do if we're going to recover from this disease. The plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed the return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. Okay, so again, you can write off to the right, Dr. William D. Silkworth. His name was William Duncan Silkworth, and that was at the Towns Hospital. The Towns Hospital, Dr. William D. Silkworth, Towns Hospital. And that is the hospital that Bill Wilson went to for 3 treatments, right? He had to go in there 3 times. So if some of you have been through more than 1 treatment and you're feeling a little bit down, the author of our book went through 3 treatments. I myself went through 8 or 9. I can't remember quite how many, but it was a lot. To whom it may concern. And you can write 1939 because that's when he wrote this letter. To whom it may concern, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. Remember, he treated 50,000 of us. In late 1934, I attended a patient. Okay, above patient, write Bill Wilson. He's the primary author of this book. And when the 40 people got together, they thought they really had something, because, the 40 people that had been sober was unheard of back then. And they asked Bill to write the book because he'd been sober longer than anybody. He had a whopping 3 years when he started to write this book. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. Let's underline hopeless, and after that in the margin write beyond human aid. They're talking about beyond human aid. In the course of his 3rd treatment, and again, underline 3rd, right? He didn't just get this and things got better. In the course of his 3rd treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. Okay, so we're going to highlight the next sentence. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. And circle that must, right? We're going to circle all the musts in the first 164 pages and see how many there are. I was told that there's 111 musts or actions. To be honest with you, I've never counted them up. I know that there's a lot of them. Now, if you're a member of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, there are no musts. No musts whatsoever. All you have to do to be part of the fellowship is have a desire to stop drinking. But if you want to work the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and have a life-changing experience, right, you want to recover from this, then there are certain things we're going to have to do. So next to what we just underlined, off to the left, you can write passing it on. Passing it on. And then off to the right, I don't know if I said it, but I think there's 111 musts. You can write that too. 111 things that they're telling us that we've got to accept or that we've got to do. right? And my last time, right, 9 treatments, I was 6 months sober, I'm suicidal, I can't take it anymore, I'm either going to drink myself to death, or I'm just going to put a bullet in my head. When I came into this Code Blue, they told me that if I did all of these things, that I would be granted a new life, and I did not believe them. I did not believe them for a second. But I was at the point where I didn't have any other options. I was out of options, and I said, you know what, guys, I'm going to do it, and I'll prove you wrong. And I did it, and my life changed. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. Circle that word recovered again, right? There's that word again. That's kind of a controversy in AA. But I'm here to tell you that my book tells me that if I do the work, if I do the 12 steps, that I will recover from a hopeless condition of body and mind, right? I'm never cured. I'm never going to be cured. We're going to talk about the allergy, right? We will never be cured, but we can be recovered and we can be granted a new life. I personally know scores, right? That means 20s, if you remember the Gettysburg Address. I personally know scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. After that last line, write rigorous honesty. Rigorous honesty. And there he is, William D. Silkworth, M.D. As soon as the Psychiatric Association of America pronounced it an illness, he said, go ahead and put my name in there now, fellas. The physician who, at our request, gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must, circle must believe. And we're going to highlight this next phrase, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. Now that's the first time that we can see anywhere that somebody said the body of the alcoholic is something wrong with that, as well as the mind. Up until this point, everybody said, you guys, man, the only thing wrong with you is weak will, bad moral character, and you're sinful, right? For thousands of years, that's what was wrong with us. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality. Underline full flight from reality, and next to that, write denial. Right? I think I was into my 4th treatment, and before I actually started to think that maybe there was a problem. In full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us. But we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy, circle that word, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may, of course, mean little. But as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization, underline hospitalization, and next to that put detox. We favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. Now, I was addicted to alcohol. I was addicted to crack cocaine and opiates. Opiates as well. I mean, I was doing about 150 Oxy, Percocet, whatever I could get a day. And I detoxed off of both of those. And I was taught by the doctors that the most painful for me was getting off of those opiates, but they informed me that they could have thrown me in a jail cell, right? They could have thrown me in the jail cell on those opiates and come back 4 days later and I'd still be alive and fine, even though I would think I'm dying, right? But the alcoholic, right, who thinks, oh, I'm fine, and he's detoxing off the booze, I'm fine. The alcoholic is the one who's in more danger of dying coming off of the booze. So definitely, back in the day when they wrote this book, there are stories about these members. They would show up and they would sit on people's chests. They would do whatever. They would wean them off. Today, what we're going to do with somebody, we are going to get them to detox, right? That's the safest thing that we can do for anybody, no matter what they're coming off on. So if you know somebody, you're going to do them the greatest favor by getting them into a detox center. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. And I can testify to that. When I've tried to 12-step people when they're drunk, I've had zero success with that. But when I get somebody even the next day who's hungover, or even a couple days later, the success rate of getting them to be willing to do something different is much greater. The doctor writes, "The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance." Okay, so paramount means the most important, right? The absolute most important to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. Again, that's the Towns Hospital where Bill went for his 3 treatments. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology, right? So you can underline that or circle it. Moral psychology simply means values or ethics, right? That's all it means. Something I didn't have when I was out there using, right? Some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its approach presented difficulties beyond our conception. Circle beyond our conception, and right next to it write spiritual solution. Spiritual solution. So that, that moral psychology, when you run through these steps a few times, and it's something that you continually do. It's a big circle, and you live by these steps or these principles. I'm out there using, it didn't bother me to lie. It didn't bother me to steal from people. It didn't bother me to do a lot of things. Today, if I occasionally I'm coming up on 5 years sober. Occasionally I tell a lie. Occasionally I do something that's a little bit dishonest. It bothers the hell out of me, and I got to go fix it, or I don't sleep that night. Right? So that's what they're talking about. Moral psychology. It's living by a different set of principles, right? Values, ethics. Something that I certainly didn't have when I was using, or I violated all of them when I was using. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge, right? So he's just talking about what the doctors know, right? The scientific approach to it. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors, okay, write Bill W. above contributor, again, Bill Wilson. By the way, again, I'm going to repeat that, Bill Wilson, they said, you've been sober longer than anybody, Bill, so you write this book, right? But every time you finish a couple of pages, you got to send it to us, and we're going to read it. Because, Bill, this isn't your book, this is our book. So we're going to read it, we're going to make changes, and when we all agree on it, we're going to put it down. So again, and by the end, it started with 40 and 37. By the time it was finished, there were 100. So if you disagree with what these guys are saying in this book, you're arguing with 100 people, you're not arguing with one. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here, he acquired some ideas. Okay, above some ideas, you can write starting of steps. The starting of the steps, and we'll get into that a little bit later. It came from a group called the Oxford Group, but it was the starting of the steps, which he put into practical application at once underline practical application at once. Okay, and if you're in the what am I, 4th edition, you can write 3 days sober. In that little margin, write 3 days sober. Bill W. started 12-stepping, right? 3 days sober. Bill W. started 12-stepping. You know, and I mentioned this last week. You know, if people would have waited till they had 6 months or a year before they started going out and trying to help people, we would not be sitting here today. Abby Thatcher went to Bill Wilson when he had 2 months of sobriety. Bill Wilson ran all around New York his first 6 months trying to help people, but he approached Dr. Bob when he had 6 months of sobriety. Dr. Bob went out and started 12-stepping with 10 days sobriety. So it doesn't take much for us to go out and try to help other people. Later, he requested the privilege, underline that word privilege, right? Privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgivings, underline some misgivings, we consented. Right? So basically what we've got, you know, the town's hospital, that's where people got locked up for alcoholic and drug insanity. You know, Bill Wilson, we're going to read in his story where he had a white light experience. He had a spiritual experience, not an awakening. It happened all at once. And the doctors, with a lot of misgivings, let Bill start talking to some of the other hopeless patients in that hospital that they knew that the doctors themselves could not help, right? So here what they're doing is they're letting a crackpot. He was a crackpot babbler 3 days ago. All of a sudden, they're letting him talk to people in that hospital because the doctors knew that they could do nothing for these people who were hopeless, right? Amazing. With some misgivings, we consented. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness, underline that word, unselfishness, of these men as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power, highlight to the end of the sentence there, in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Now, again, guys, it's been a stressful day for me. I've had a lot of coffee. If I'm going too fast, tell me to slow down. Power, circle that word. You can see that it's capitalized. That's capitalized. So Bill he refers to deities by many different terms in this book. And you can write that there's 30 synonyms for God in these first 164 pages, at least. There's 30 different synonyms to denote God or higher power or whatever you want to call it. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor. Okay, underline physical craving for liquor. And again, above that, write detox. Okay, but we're also going to write the word allergy there. Right? Now, in the context of the recovery portion of the big book, whenever they say craving, they're not referring to somebody who has been sober for a couple of days or a month or a week and wants a drink, needs a drink. They're talking about somebody who has actually put alcohol into their body, right? So in the terms of the recovery section of this book, when it talks about craving, that's after we've had one drink, right? When we have one drink, we are going to crave another and another and another. And this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. So also at the top, guys, let's write obsession of the mind and allergy of the body. It's a twofold disease. Obsession of the mind and allergy of the body. Right? That's kind of the disease concept. And if we get hot in here, open a window. I'm going to put this guy. Or if we get too cold, let me know.
That's better.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that word allergy. Yep. And if you're hot down there, guys, you can go ahead and open those windows too. So, you know, the word allergy, where's my sheet here? Okay, so the word allergy, I was confused about that, right? I mean, how can I be allergic to alcohol when I'm doffing a quart a day, right? I'm drinking a quart of the stuff a day. There's no way I'm allergic to this, right? I don't understand what these people are talking about, and I did not understand that. So the word allergy, right? You look it up in the dictionary, and I'm stealing from Joe and Charlie, right? They look it up in the dictionary, and one of the definitions is a physical manifestation brought on by a food, beverage, or substance, right? And again, how can I be allergic to something that I drink so much of, right? I didn't have a rash. I guess I had watery eyes and maybe a runny nose, but I didn't have the allergic reaction that you get from hay fever. So no rash, no watery eyes, no runny nose, no dysentery. How can I be allergic? Well, one definition of allergy is an abnormal reaction to something, right? Abnormal. So, in other words, what do the majority of people do, right, when they take alcohol in versus what do the 10% of us do? So, right, what is normal and what is not, right? I didn't understand that because I thought, when I drank, I only hung around with people that drank like me. I mean, in college, we'd drink a couple of cases before we went out to the bars. I didn't know that other people would drink small amounts and stop. I was real confused about that. I go to see a Vikings game and I'm drunk. I thought everybody at the game was drunk, right? So I don't know what's normal and what's not. So the social temperate drinker, right? They come home from work. They're tired, they're tense, they're wrought up from the day's work. The normal drinker has a couple of drinks. They get a relaxing, comfortable feeling. They have dinner, and they don't drink anymore that night. Never heard of such a thing, right? That's not how I drink, but that's what normal people do. That's how they drink. That's what the 90% do. I definitely, when I drink, I am not like that, right? They have a couple of drinks. They get a slightly tipsy, slightly dizzy, out of control feeling. And they don't like that feeling, right? They don't like it at all. So they stop drinking, right? And you've all been out with people who are non-alcoholics, and you say, hey, have another one, have another drink. Come on, have another drink. And they're going to say, no, I'm not going to have another drink. I feel this already. I don't want any more of that stuff. No, don't give it to me. I'm starting to feel sick and nauseous. I'm having. So 2 or 3 is all they want. That's all the drinks they want, right? For them, alcohol is a downer. It's a sedative, right? No more. For me, it's an upper, right? Man, I can get home. I can be beat. I take a couple of drinks and man, I wake up, right? They get a tipsy, out of control feeling and maybe they want to go to bed. I take a couple of drinks. I get an exciting, in control feeling, right? They take some drinks. They want to go to bed. I have some drinks and I want to go out to the bars, right? I want to go out and do stuff. So we react different physically and mentally, right? They will not drink more. Just about everybody in my family. There's 9 kids in my family. 3 of us are alcoholics. 6 of us aren't. And once they've had a glass or 2 of wine, the non-alcoholics do not want any more. They're done. Now, alcohol is a toxic substance. And their bodies, if they start drinking more than a 1 drink an hour, their bodies want to puke it out, right? My body demands more, right? So an allergy is an abnormal reaction, right? We're the 10%, us alcoholics. You can't see it. You can only feel it, right? So we're going to take a look at this little sheet of paper that I passed out today. Now, I want to let everybody know that this is not AA approved material. This is not AA approved at all, right? Did you get one?
No.
Does everybody got one? All right, let's pass these up. Let's pass these around. So this is the doctor's opinion today. They have proven that it's true, right? They've proven that it's true. So we're going to look. We're going to refer to this twice today, but the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to see where it says 1 drink. 1 drink. We're going to follow those arrows up, right? And it says 9 drink safely. They are at ease with alcohol. So 9 out of 10 of us, they have enzymes in their body of sufficient quantity and quality that they can process this alcohol. So a regular non-alcoholic person has a drink, takes that drink, it turns it into acetaldehyde, or whatever you say it. Then it turns into diacetic acid, and then it turns into acetone, right? And then it goes out, water, sugar, carbon dioxide. It goes out through the respiratory system, urinary tract, and you're done, and the sugar gets burned up as empty calories. Now, a non-alcoholic, they drink 1 drink an hour, they can't get drunk. It processes it out, right? So now let's go up to the top and let's follow that arrow over. The arrow is over to enzymes of insufficient quantity and quality. That's us, right? So this is one who does not drink safely or is at dis-ease with alcohol, right? Disease, dis-ease. We have enzymes of insufficient quantity and quality, right? So when we take a drink, right, it turns it into that first word there that I can't pronounce. Then it turns it into diacetic acid, right? But we do not have enough enzymes to get that acetone out of our body. And it is proven today that when you have acetone in your bloodstream or your body or whatever, it causes an actual physical craving for more, right? So if we have 1 drink, right, we can't process that acetone out of there fast enough. We still have acetone left. We have a second drink, right? Now we've got the acetone from the first drink and the second drink. We have our third. Now we've got acetone from 3 drinks, right? By the time we've had 20 drinks, we've still got the acetone is building up, and we want more and more and more, right? And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm on the floor of the men's room. I just got the hell beat out of me. People run in there and say, "Can we help you, sir? Can we help you?" I'm like, "Yes, get me another drink," right? That's what happens to alcoholics. We want more and more and more. So today, that's the doctor's opinion, has been proven. I just love it, when if I watch, like, over at my sister's house, I think last month, and, I saw her, she poured herself a glass of wine, didn't pour it, we were talking and everything else, she poured it, got it all ready to drink, and then she set it down and we started talking. She didn't even take a sip. What the hell, right? That's because they're not like us. So, all right, back to the book. Where did I...